And we are live. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Vincent, After Hours edition. And it's still with Christian. I'm so surprised on our 8th episode, Christian remains on the program.
I've made it to 8 episodes.
You've made it to 8 episodes. And we just literally before we came online, we just checked the stats from our YouTube channel, and there were 18,000 views on our YouTube channel. I know it's not a lot when you compare it to the numbers that the likes of Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy podcast pull in, but for two newbies talking to people who have very kindly supporting us, 18,000 the number is great, and we are very grateful, and we are going to keep on doing this because a lot of you have written to us, have messaged us, have posted a DM as well as comments on our social media, expressing how useful and helpful the conversation between me and Christian regarding all the things around our life from the lens of science. Because at the end of the day, that is the mission and vision of this podcast. Because we're being bombarded with a lot of hype, a lot of sensational news about our health and well-being, and sometimes it's really hard to separate between myth and fact, between truth and fiction. And we want to offer that basically everything in our life from the lens and perspective of science. Isn't that true, Christian?
It's absolutely true, and I want to do a really big one today.
Okay,
so a really big one.
take it away.
An important one, because this just seems to be, a constant focus of people, even in their teenage years and right up to old age. Everyone is always talking about their weight. I don't think there's anybody who has not had a discussion at some time or another about their weight, whether it be too skinny or too fat. Am I allowed to say fat?
For this episode, I do think that we need to talk about.
Is it overweight or fat? What are we saying?
So when I was studying my degree in nutrition, and how we handle this word is usually we were being advised that we need to use the word overweight because overweight can be scientifically defined. I know that now that
so fat is not a scientific term.
Fat is not
okay. Well, we shouldn't use it. This
So
is a scientific
fat-
program. We shouldn't use it.
I know, but it is a definition that is being coined or formed around several parameters. And one of those parameters is BMI, body mass index, which I have a lot of issue with, but we'll go into details in a little bit later.
But isn't whether or not someone, if someone calls someone...
So fat in itself is not a characteristic.
Someone's opinion, basically.
But fat in itself is not a characteristic.
Yep.
Fat is a type of macronutrients, the same way that we call protein, we call carbohydrate. Fat is adipose tissue, fat. So a fat is one of the macronutrients.
Okay, so you're talking about from the scientific point of view, but when you see someone that's overweight and you call them fat, you don't mean it from a scientific point of view. I guess.
Yes, it is something that the same way that you call people crazy or you call people silly, it's not a scientific term. It is terms that we use that are agreed upon by society. However, in the clinical setting, fat is not a clinical term. Fat is not something that is being used to describe someone's weight. It is either underweight, overweight, obese, morbidly obese.
Okay, so if we're going to stick to sort of the overweight, the sort of more scientific terms, which
the clinical terms,
which I think is a good thing. Really, the first question from me is, why do we all care what someone else weighs?
That's a really fascinating question, isn't it? That I get it that we care about our own
ways or looks.
And weight is such a big part of how someone looks. And I really do believe that it has something within us and within our society that really provoke the competitiveness when it comes to someone's weight. So I do believe that being skinny or being underweight or being toned and fit or compared to being overweight or being fat or being obese carry certain feelings and social status within our society. So people have equated being skinny and being fit as a social status and symbol to show that they're healthy, they have more money, they put a lot more care into their body and health.
But in some
Even
society,
though being healthy or uh, being fat or being skinny are not necessarily mutually exclusive. People can be underweight and being unhealthy. People can be overweight from the perspective of BMI and still are actually fit and healthy.
but it's not even actually. I don't think true to say that every society, every culture, values some,
You're absolutely right.
Adonis-looking body. It's
You're
not.
absolutely right. I was born in Indonesia. I grew up there, and Indonesia is probably one of the richest country when it comes to different cultures. We have people from Java, and we also have people from Papua, which is part of the Polynesian culture and tribe. So, in those in in those cultures, being uh, well rounded and having what Western society would classify as being fat and overweight are actually more desirable because those are the sign of wealth. Those are the sign of uh, well nourishment compared to people who are undernourished. So I do think that you're absolutely right to call me out on that. You're absolutely. We need to think and reframe when I say about society expectation and social symbol and status. I think it all of these have been shaped a lot by the Western culture, in the way that
Is it?
what
Is
they
this
put
the?
in front of the magazine, Vogue, Hollywood, and stuff.
Is this the British and the Americans again? Is it?
I do believe so because one of the I hope you don't judge me too much, people, but in my mind, in my opinion, one of the best thought provoking movies of all time is American Psycho, and that talk about how people on the Wall Street view success not only from how much money you make, but how good you look in the way that whether you're muscular, how skin, how clear and smooth your skin is, and how much you care about your appearances, your clothes, the bag that you carry, your name card, for example. So I do think that when we see someone, we immediately in our mind, consciously or subconsciously, calculate how well they are doing compared to us. And weight is part of that.
But it's a societal construct. So in some cultures, having a bit more weight on you is
It's
i-
considered
much better than being
a
skinny.
better social status. And as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
evolutionary people who are blessed with the genetic that they can retain more fat, they can store more fat tissues, are actually the desirable uh, genetical trait compared to people who lose weight easily. Because I know now it's really hard to believe that this is true, but thousands and thousands of years ago, millions and million years ago, those humans, early humans with the ability to store more fat were the ones who survived because food didn't come by easily.
So is the weight is your weight down to your genetics then?
It is always nurture versus nature, right? I do think that they are outliers from both sides. So there are people who can't seem to lose weight, but at the same time, also there are people who can't seem to gain weight. The issue is that
Don't
we
we
can't.
all hate those people?
I know, right? But you want what you don't have.
That's
I
right.
know. So I am a FFK. Do you know what FFK
I
means?
have never heard that before.
Former fat kid.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I grew up taller and fatter than my peers. And I stand at 5'11", and that is very tall for my people. When I grew up, my people being Asians, and not only I was tall, I was also big in the way that people made fun of me. And I always, I always said as a kid, I always said that I wish to be skinny. But at the same time that I was being made fun of for being fat, I also had a friend who was so skinny that he was also being made fun of, being poked and being picked on because of his underweight. And I remember our friends used to like do that uh, noise when he walked past, indicating that they could hear his bone clicking.
Really?
And he used to say to me exactly the same thing that I felt, that he wished that he was fat. So when we talk about being fat shame, there's another aspect of that, being skinny shame, and both are just equally as bad.
So again, I get back to this sort of question: why do we care what someone else weighs, or is it just us
Because
judging it? But and why do we talk about it
we
so much? Why
measure
do we talk
we
about it?
measure we measure people's worth based on how they look, and weight is a big aspect of that. Uh, weight loss weight loss supplement treatment and intervention, drugs, medication made up such a big part of the wellness industry because people want to get skinny. Before Ozempic or Mounjaro, there was Senical. There were many, many other drugs that came before that. There were even more uh, extreme steps like stomach bending or reducing the size of your stomach, injecting balloon in your stomach so that you don't eat as much. So I do believe that the social construct around how people look has a lot to do with the size that they are. I mean, I don't know if people remember one of the most famous quotes from the Devil Wears Prada movie was that they actually reduced the number that they assign to certain sizes so that people feel that uh, they are too big for the clothes. So size 4 is now size 0. And
Yeah.
and this is the industry, be it from movie, magazine, fashion, and it seeps into wellness. Being skinny is being prized as being healthy.
Because this is like, this the weight loss industry is like $70 billion or something.
I know,
It's like massive.
if only we put all of that money into cancer research, for example. Uh, obviously, I'm not talking about morbidly obese or obesity, because obviously that is a health issue. It's not just a vanity issue. I'm talking more about if you are from size 4 and you wish that you're size 2 or size 0. I really do want to dispel the myth that you have to be skinny to be healthy, because I know people who are very athletic, very active, and very, very physically and mentally healthy, and they don't fit into the cookie cutter of being skinny.
So, okay, well, then that sort of leads to the question, at what, and I guess you can ask it in a number of ways, but at what point should you be concerned about your weight, whether or not too skinny or overweight? And you don't like BMI. You talked about that previously. So, when just as a normal person should you be concerned about how much you weigh?
Let me address the second part of your question first, about BMI. BMI stands for body mass index. It is a number that is being agreed upon by medical professionals when it comes to how to scientifically and clinically measure whether someone is underweight, perfectly weight, overweight, or obese. It is not a perfect system because people from different ethnicities and races are built differently. So I don't think it should be the only benchmark when it comes to measuring people's weight and in terms of weight range. But we don't have a better system. So that remains the clinical way of the weight determination when it comes to the classification. But your your question is around when being overweight should be an issue or
or
being
being skinny.
underweight is an issue. And the way that I always answer this question or I approach this question is by asking another question where I know it's classic, right? Answering question with question. But someone when it comes to the concern about their weight needs to ask themselves, is the weight they are in affecting their lives, especially when it comes to their physical activities? For example, if you are, for me, I feel that I am at the perfect weight at 75, between 75 to 77 kilograms. However, when I get to 80 kilograms, I do still think that I'm healthy. But when I get to 85 or 90 kilograms, I felt that I don't walk as far. I am unable to be as
I
active.
have never seen you at 90 kilograms.
Believe you me, I have been. And this is what I'm getting at. It prevents me from living my life in the way that I desire it to be. So I do not believe, and I challenge you to argue, prove me wrong. But I do not believe that people who are morbidly obese or people who are severely overweight, or even when they're just overweight, they do not want to be in the shape and in weight range that allows them to walk 10,000 steps every day, that allows them to play with their kids, to pick up their kids, to be active with their kids, to go out for a hike, to not say no when someone say that, let's go out for a walk. I, I, I challenge you to prove me wrong, because if those people can be in the healthy weight range, they want to be. In the same way, when people are skinny and they said, oh no, I'm good, blah, 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 if they can just take a pill or make a wish and the wish is being granted that they will be in the healthy weight range, they would want to be that too.
Yeah, but is anybody actually ever happy with the weight that they are? I mean, isn't like people don't stop talking about it. They could lose a lot of weight and they're not happy, or they could gain weight and they're not happy, and
I think
they're
everybody
never happy.
I think everybody has a little bit and I'm not saying this with the intent of trivializing the issue, but I do think that every one of us has a little bit of a body dysmorph issue. The same way that we think that our skin is never perfect, I also believe that everybody thinks that they could be better. And I don't think that's bad, because if you're active and you want to be more active, or if you can bench press 90 kilograms and you want to be bench pressing 100 kilograms, that's progress. That's your constant ability to improve yourself. However, when it comes to how your brain processing it, if it becomes an addiction and obsession, that's when it becomes unhealthy.
And that's more of a mental thing than
That's correct. But at the same time, I don't think there is a stop in terms of us talking about weight and us judging people based on their weight. Judging meaning it doesn't always mean negative, because when you when I look at someone who is really fit, I judge them in the way that, wow, I want to be like that. What should I do to be like that?
Or alternatively, it could be like they must spend so much time in the gym, they have no life. That must be the only thing that's important to them, to just look like that.
There's an argument to that. As a matter of fact, I also want to bring up this issue that just because someone looks healthy doesn't mean that they are healthy. So let me repeat this again.
And you're talking,
Just because someone looks healthy doesn't mean they're healthy.
and that's again what looks healthy. So some muscular or very slim person or something like that. You're talking about like a fat percentage on the body that we
I'm
all
talking.
that
I'm
that
talking
people
across.
aspire to, sort of.
I'm talking across the spectrum. So uh, on the spectrum where people are overweight or they look like they are fat based on certain parameters or based on certain beauty standards, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are less healthy compared to their skinnier counterpart. Because I mean, I'm sure people still remember when uh, Paris Fashion Week changed the regulation bar and ban models who are too skinny because it is unhealthy and it is portraying unhealthy body image. And at the same time, even men, Adonis men who seemingly look so healthy, so at the peak performance and have this virility, masculinity, and prowess, a lot of people, a lot of men at that level of body fat, when the body fat is so low, they struggle with things like erection. They struggle with things like sex drive because their body is under so much stress and survival mode that all all the body is focusing on is to stay alive rather than functioning properly.
Okay, so let's mix it up a bit and ask a couple of questions then about being underweight, because most people, I guess, the majority are concerned about being overweight, but that being underweight as well is a. So, what does it affect in your body being underweight? Well, like what what does it affect your heart? Does it affect your lungs? Does it affect your
So
liver? Does it affect your kidney? Like what is actually happening?
I'm not blaming the Americans, but you lot have a lot to do with this because when you and your government declare war on fat, suddenly fat is such a toxic word. It is a villain and the antithesis of being healthy. But fat in our body has a function, has an array of function. It protects your body from temperature, so it cushions your body from impact. It is a source of energy, and it also helps your body to function in the way that producing heat, in the way that protecting it from impact, in the way that it produces hormones and regulating your temperature. So fat performs specific variety of functions in your body. When you remove the fat, the same way if you add too much fat, those two situations are not healthy because your body is struggling to cope. It's no longer at the peak performance state. So when people are so
But,
skinny,
but what's it affecting? Does it affect your heart or
it
what?
affects your heart, it affects your brain, your cognitive function, it affects your circulation. If your body is keeps on trying to keep up with your body temperature, that really does throw a spanner in your brain function because instead of performing at its peak, your brain has to signal every single organs and your circulation to keep it warm. Because without fat, we can't insulate our body. Our body temperature fluctuates too much, and at the same time, um, there are some fat in our body. We call it brown fat is actually a source of our energy. So this group of fat that's called brown fat is producing energy to keep our body functioning, including our brain. So the issue here is not that we have fat in our body. The issue is that how we have the optimal or the ideal percentage of fat in our body.
So what's the ideal percentage of fat?
It really depends on male, female. Female body tends to have a higher percentage of body fat because obviously with breasts and more the body shape and more body mass in the hip, female bodies are biologically created to have more adipose tissue or fat tissue. For men, we have less, but what I want to talk about here is the percentage of different fat. So, for example, the visceral fat helps to protect our organ. Too much of it will put too much pressure and workload, extra workload to our heart. Because just imagine if your heart is being encased with a lot of fat, our heart is a muscle. The amount of energy that it requires to keep pumping blood is being impaired with that fat padding around it. But at the same time, when you don't have enough brown fat to fuel your organs, then your organs is constantly starving. It doesn't have energy to perform. And what I want to probably highlight is that when babies are born, which we always say that everything is new, right? That is the peak performance of biology when it comes to newborn baby. The amount of brown fat tissues in babies' bodies are actually much higher compared to adult. So the brown fat, the reason why we call it the brown fat is because it is full of mitochondria. Mitochondria is this powerhouse in our cells that fuels our body. So this type of fat, instead of storing fat, what it does is actually fuels your body. As we grow older, the proportion of our white fat, which is the fat for storage, has become higher compared to the brown fat. The good news is that you can wake up these white fats and turn them into brown fats, and that has a lot to do with reducing inflammation, making sure that your circulation is good, making sure that your metabolic rate is good. And to do that, you need water, good nutrient, sleep, and walking.
Okay, so we want to explore that just a little bit further. But before we go into that, because I absolutely love this story, do I have time to talk about the war on fat?
Sure.
Could I do that?
You have
Because this is
exactly 3 minutes.
okay. So this is one of the most fascinating things from, I think, nutritional history, and it was all about an American president, and I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson actually, who had a heart attack
While in office.
while he was in office. And obviously, this sent ripples through the entire US, community, society. And they wanted to get to the bottom of why the president had a heart attack. And everyone got together and they decided it was due to one of two causes. It was either too much fat the president had been eating or too much sugar the president had been eating. And that set off a major debate. And of course,
The
the US.
lobbyists from both groups.
Yes, but more importantly, the very well-funded lobbyists from the sugar industry just absolutely threw everything that they had at it, to make sure that the evidence base pointed all towards
Fat.
fat. And that was just purely self-interested lobbyists on the sugar side of things, from doing that. So sugar was the innocent participant, and fat was guilty of almost killing the president. And that narrative has stuck around for seriously like 50 or 60 years or
Well,
something.
even till now, and I can tell you from personal experience, I work with a lot of people in their 60s and 70s, and they will put 5 teaspoons or 6 teaspoons of sugar into their coffee and tea, not thinking that that's bad. However, when you put a drop of oil in their salad dressing, they will think that that's the worst thing ever. They still think that margarine is healthier than butter because margarine has lower amount of fat, never mind all the 1700 chemicals in it. But you are absolutely right. This is the reason why I pointed fingers to them, our American friends, because you guys caused this.
And so let's talk about this then just a little bit. Uh, why from a weight perspective, why is sugar potentially the culprit? What happens when you eat sugar? How does it affect your weight?
So it affects your weight in 4 different ways. The first one is that it is easier for your body to extract and absorb calories from sugar compared to fat. It takes a whole lot of amount of energy to get energy from fat. Number two, sugar has this addictive personality or characteristic to it. It means that when you eat sugar or sugary food, there's a moreish thing. It really fits your dopamine system. Whereas with fat, fat is actually really plays an important role in your meal. It promotes satiety. So that's the reason.
What's satiety?
sa-
Sorry.
Satiety, to satisfy your craving, to satisfy your hunger. It signal our hormone called leptin to our brain, and our brain will tell our body that you're full. And
Okay.
that's the reason why you will it will be easier for you to overeat on sugar than overeat on fat. Number three, sugar sends your insulin level to skyrocket, but at the same time, it actually crash it not like quite quickly as well. And that's why people who eat sugary stuff tend to get hungry again within a relatively short amount of time. And number four, sugar promotes inflammation a lot faster and a lot more severely compared to fat. So people always think that cholesterol is the culprit when it comes to heart disease, but it's actually sugar. Sugar is the one that causes systemic inflammation in the body because it it prevents your cells from regenerating. I mean, it is very classic, right? When people are diabetic, when they have cuts, it's really hard for their body to heal that cuts. Imagine that at our cellular level, when we consume too much sugar, when our body cannot regulate our blood sugar level, it prevents our body at the cellular level from repairing, regenerating, and recuperating.
I reckon we should do a whole show on sugar.
We should. I mean, it is called Ask Dr. Vincent. So, you can ask me anything, Christian.
Okay, so before we get to doing
Scientifically.
before we get to doing a whole show on sugar, again, I want to do a reverse or whatever they call it, and I want to ask you, if you're underweight, what is the best way to gain weight? What should you be eating? What should you be doing? Should you just not exercise at all? Should you just,
This is the crazy.
do the burgers or something?
This is the crazy thing about science, right? Because the answer to both underweight and overweight is the same.
Yeah.
The main culprit as to why people can't seem to lose weight and why people can't seem to gain weight is inflammation. It is not about the amount of food that you eat. Skinny people or people who are underweight can just eat everything and they can't gain weight. It has nothing to do with what they eat, but what their body absorbs. When people have high inflammation rate in their body is too busy resolving that issue rather than digesting, metabolizing, and absorbing nutrients from what they eat. At the same time, when people are overweight and their body is under a lot of inflammatory stress, their body can't seem to burn the fat storage that they have to create energy. So I know that it seems paradoxical, but inflammation is very core of our body's weight management because our body's weight management falls into three groups. The first one, we can't really change. We can influence it, but we can't really change our metabolic rate. Some people, and this is a small proportion. I don't want people to say that, oh, okay, my metabolic rate is slow.
But
I can't change anything.
Where does metabolic rate come from? Is it in your brain, or where does it come from?
It is genetic. So
Okay.
some people have low metabolic rate. They put on weight easier compared to the general population. Some people have higher metabolic rate. It's very hard for them to put on weight. So that's number one. You can't really change it. You can influence it. And number two is about your hormone. So when you train your body and brain to crave on sugar, to crave on salt, to be quote unquote addicted to food, it plays a role in the determining your weight scale. So when people are eating a lot of simple carbs, sugar, ultra processed food, they tend to eat a lot more calorie compared to people who eat whole foods. So that affects
This is
our weight.
feeling full thing.
That's correct. And the third thing that affects people weight is our gut microbiome. We talk about our gut microbiome.
We talked about that last time.
That's correct. And there is this thing called gut and brain axis. And it is how your body is actually communicating with your brain when it comes to what happens down here and what happens up here. A healthy gut microbiome will allow your body to complete the digestion in a lot better and faster way. And this sends a signal to your brain that it is well nourished. We don't need more food. So sometimes the reason why people are hungry is because their body, it's not because their body is lack of calorie, their body lacks of nutrients. And the only way the brain knows to survive is by sending the hunger signal. So you eat more food. The issue and the mistake that we make is that we eat more of the wrong food. So your body keep asking your brain keep asking your body to keep eating food. And that is training our body to not feel full on this much food. We have to eat this much food. And that's the reason why sometimes it's so hard for people to change their dietary behavior, because without knowing it, they have trained their body into only feeling full and satisfied after eating a big portion rather than a small portion.
I'm actually sitting here feeling a bit silly because I've actually gained an insight into you. I mean, I know you pretty well, and I've gained an insight into you. I'm connecting the dots here, and you talk so passionately about this. Um, I mean, this is part of the reason that you invented the ultra antioxidant that you did, isn't it? This is this
That
is this is it. You used to be a fat kid, and and about, or an overweight kid, sorry, and you know about this, and so really the when we're talking about ultra antioxidants, you're talking about obviously eating the right foods and all that sort of stuff as well, but you're talking about um those with the prebiotic and all that sort of stuff. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
that is exactly what we were talking about. And while the main purpose of creating activated phenolics is not for me to lose weight, it is a bonus. It is a good quote unquote side effect. But the reason why I am so passionately talking about this is because I remember when I was doing my clinical placement, and my supervisor at the time insisted that weight loss is mathematical. It's purely mathematical. It's calorie in and calorie out. I passionately disagree with that, because
You disagree with that?
I disagree with that because that is not the only issue. So people go on hunger strike. I'm not trying to make fun of this, but people go on like fasting or crash diet or detox, whatever it is that they call it, and not eating this the amount of food that would make them gain weight, but they still can't shake the excess weight off their body. And that's because their body is holding on to it because it is so unhealthy. Their body is inflamed in the way that they cannot actually function properly. So if if weight loss is purely mathematics, I'm sure in our lives, people who for a fact they don't eat nearly as much as some other people, but they are larger in size compared to you, for example, who actually eat not so much, or people who seem to eat everything every 2 hours, every 3 hours, and they are skinny as stick, and that has a lot to do with the state of their body. If weight loss is purely mathematical, you wouldn't have these cases.
So I guess what you're saying then is that you need a good, in terms of whether or not you're underweight or you're overweight, if you want to get to your healthy weight range, whatever that is, and probably a range rather than a percentage of something or an exact BMI or something like that, because we're always unhappy with everything. Um, you need at the very least a good prebiotic. Am I getting that right? Prebiotic?
Yes.
Okay. And you need something that works on inflammation in your body. Is that what you need? Those two fundamental things, and then it's about what you do in terms of your diet
That's
and
correct.
exercise.
That is correct. So you control your inflammation rate. You make sure that your gut microflora is thriving, and that's a lot to do with prebiotic. And the first one has a lot to do with phenolic antioxidants that helps to reduce your inflammation rate. And guess what? Even though we have a supplement company, and we do think that our supplement is the best antioxidant, the most potent antioxidant that are natural and extracted naturally for you, I will say that one of the ways, or the main way rather, to achieve this low inflammation rate and healthy gut microflora is by eating fresh and whole foods. Because if we are looking into all of different diets in the world, the two diets that consistently score the healthiest and the best, and it is being evidenced by the longer lifespan of the people who follow this diet, are the Mediterranean diets and the Japanese diets. From the surface, they they are so different. One is more heavily on meat. The other one is more heavily on fish and seafood. and one is heavily on the wheat. The other one is more heavily on rice when it comes to the
Not a lot of sugar
carbohydrate.
not a lot of sugar in either of those.
You're absolutely right. Not a lot of sugar, and they're all fresh and whole foods. The issue becomes that we now live in this society where, because we're time poor and lazy, I say that lazy because I'm included in those people. So I'm not only pointing fingers to you, I'm pointing fingers to myself too. We thrive on processed food. We thrive on ultra processed foods. Those are the issue. So
let's do a whole show on sugar and ultra processed foods. I want to do that.
let's do that. And people, send in your questions if you want me to answer things around or about those two topics, sugar and ultra processed food. But let me get back to maintaining a healthy weight, or being in the healthy weight range. Managing your inflammation, making sure that your gut is healthy. Those are the fundamental things
They're
that
the
we
building
need
block.
to do. They're the foundation of the building blocks that we're going to put on top of it. And these building blocks include hydration, because our body cannot burn fat without water.
Really?
So where do you think our fat goes when we lose weight?
I don't know. It just goes out.
People think that you poop it out, right? No, that is not the case, because I mean, if you do that, you really need to go and see a doctor. What I'm saying is that is not your body, how your body works. When our body burns fat and when our body loses fat, the fat is actually being converted into carbon dioxide and water, because it is part of our body respiratory system. So our body burns fat by converting our fat tissues and fat cells into energy. And that's the reason why when you want to lose weight, it needs to be a combination about restricting your calorie intake and managing it, as well as being active, because these two aspects combined will signal to your brain that your body is healthy enough to lose weight. If your body feels that it's not as healthy as it should be, it wouldn't lose weight, because remember, fat is our comfort zone. Fat is our safety net, because in the past, I'm talking about ancient human without fat at that time would be the first one to die, because food didn't come by easily.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, but I'm going to ask you a really hard question, and it's genuinely a hard question. If someone wants to lose weight and they're doing all the sort of right things in terms of the foundation, what are the, top 5 foods that they should be eating? And what's portion control? Is portion control the size of your fist, or is that something else? How many times a day should a person be eating if they want to lose weight, et cetera, et cetera?
I do think that counting calorie is a thing. As much as I said that it is not purely mathematical, but counting calorie is a thing. In the way that you need to know approximately how much you eat. It is less about counting every single calorie, but it's more about self-control. You need to put a parameter and benchmark to realize how much you eat, because it is so easy to lose track on how much you eat. You would be eating a pack of chips and think that, oh, I haven't eaten much.
I hate those chip packets because the serving size is like 2 chips or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's unrealistic. But to answer your question, it's less about portion size. It's more about self-control.
Is there anything you can just eat and eat, like celery or something like that?
Water, ice cubes.
Tofu, I don't know.
There's 0 calorie, gluten-free, vegan, cruelty-free. Well,
Ice cubes.
depending who makes it. What I'm saying is that you should stop when you're 80% full rather than 100% full.
Everyone says that. You can't do it.
You can. It just requires a concerted effort, and this is why
discipline for
this is why I said counting calories is important, because you need to know how much you have put into your body. And you ask me how many times people should eat. It really doesn't really matter how many times you eat. It is as long as you're within your calorie allowance for the day.
For the day, is that a 24-hour period, or is it a 12-hour? period, or what
It
is
is
it?
a 24-hour period. And if you don't like counting calorie, do what I do. I don't eat breakfast because
Oh my god,
that's another episode,
that's
right?
another episode. Oh my gosh.
Without you realizing it, breakfast can be packed with 500, 600, or 800 calories. By skipping breakfast, I immediately at the 800 calorie deficit.
This is controversial.
We need another episode. But the other thing that I also want to highlight is sleep. People, because you asked me what is this time period? Technically, it's 24 hours, but you need enough sleep as well. If you don't have enough sleep or good quality sleep, your body won't lose weight or won't put on weight.
You know, I've really actually enjoyed this conversation because I, like everybody else, am worried about weight just all the time.
Well, before we go, let me ask you a controversial question. Do you think medical professional should be more permissive to patients who are overweight?
Permissive, what do you mean? Like,
So
not tell people they're fat when they're fat.
that is correct. That's
Okay,
what I
well,
meant.
I'm Gen X, so we just say it as it is, and it's just like, what's wrong with all you people?
I do think that we need to stop promoting that being healthy equal being fat. I do think that we need to stop promoting that fat is always healthy. At the same time, skinny is not always healthy. Fat is also can be potentially an issue for some people. And I do think that it is risky and unethical and unprofessional for medical professionals and those in that industry, healthcare industry, to not call out fat for
But you should say,
fat being fat
but you should say
overweight
overweight,
or obese.
overweight.
So,
Yeah,
okay, let me try this again because I don't want this to be misconstrued. What I'm trying to say is
I
that
think you mixed up a few things in there. Seriously.
I do think it is alive. I do think that it is unethical and irresponsible for medical professional to not correctly diagnose someone who is overweight
And talk to them about it.
and talk to them about that, because just like heart disease, just like diabetes, just like cancer, weight management is a medical issue. It needs to be addressed medically. And I do think that you need to properly use labels when it comes to diagnosing weight issues.
Okay, so we're way out of time. We've gone way over. So
Yeah, well, that's part of the issue with these hot topics, because there is a lot of myths that I feel that I need to bust, and there's a lot of fiction that I feel that I needed to, uh, uh, push back, because similar to skin, similar to breakfast, similar to all of these issues, they are hot topics. I do think that influencers on Instagram and TikTok are telling something and peddling something that is not necessarily true and scientific. And I know that you're looking at the time and we are fresh out of time. We are literally 49 minutes and 37 seconds. So I will stop before it gets to the 50 minutes mark. I'm Dr. Vincent and you are
Christian.
We're very happy that you're still listening to us. Until next time, see you.